I lied a little bit. I said the next video is going to be us primering, but it occurred to me that it might be good to just kind of look at painting equipment and the paint that I'm using pretty quick, so that when we get down to the painting part, I don't have to stop too much. Because what I found in the past is if I don't paint fast, then my paint tends to dry and things get ugly. So kind of walk you through everything that I'm using, the general procedure I use to paint these things. I figured it out a little bit by trial and error and a little bit by watching some videos and looking at things on the internet. And that's kind of why I wanted to make these videos, is because I painted a whole bunch of these doors and I kind of got good at it after a while, and thought I'd give an everyday version of just how to do it. So let's see here. First I'll start with my equipment. So brushes, I've got a 2.5 inch angled sash brush. This is a Wooster, it looks like. You can find these anywhere. This one's got nice soft bristles. I use this brush primarily on the doors for laying off. So when you're painting, after you've put the paint on, you want to make nice long light brush streaks down everything to smooth everything out. So the paint that I use actually smooths out really well if you tip it off or lay it off. I think the terms are interchangeable. So I use this brush primarily for that. This is a 1.5 inch brush by the same manufacturer. It's also an angled sash brush. This little brush is a little stiffer. I use this for the panel detail. It works really well for that. You get the paint on, and then once again, I'm not really putting paint on with this because I use a roller to do that. I use the brushes primarily to tip off. So let's see, I've got a roller here. This is a 4 inch roller frame. You can buy them at Home Depot or anywhere. It takes these little pads right here. It's like a little mini paint roller like you'd use for your wall, except 4 inches long. I'll pull one out and show you. These are fine nap or 1/4 inch nap, so they're really fine. It says right on the package that they're for smooth surfaces and ideal for all sheens. So that's pretty convincing. And what this does is it just slides on there like this and then rolls around like that. So I reuse mine. I actually, let me show you over here. I keep mine in the fridge in a bag, and that keeps them fresh for months. So I keep, let's see, this is the paint one right here, which we'll use tomorrow. I just put it into the plastic bag and roll it up. I don't know if you can see that. The primer one is right next to it. And I usually just write the name of the product that's on it out. So when I'm done, the first thing I do is pull the roller off and stick it into the fridge so it doesn't get all gummy. So let's see here. Talk a little bit about paint. So here's the paint and primer that I use. Talk about the primer first. Get this stuff out of the way. So I had trouble with everything sticking initially. When I started painting, I was using Sherwin-Williams Wall & Wood primer. And for some reason it just did not jive with the finish I have here. I'm not a paint expert, so but I was just having problems with paint sticking. It would run really bad, it would bubble, so I switched primers pretty early. I painted all the trim in the house too, and I found this Zinsser Bullseye 123. It's a water-based primer. They sell it pretty much everywhere. I bought a 2-gallon bucket at Home Depot. The thing I like about the 2-gallon bucket, pop it open for you real quick. I'll show you. Is that, this little screen fits in there like that. So when I want a primer, I just pop it open, stir it real quick, and then pop this thing up, and then my roller rides on that screen right there. And it fits inside the bucket, so when I'm done, I can just push it back in the bucket and put the lid on the bucket, and I'm all done. So yeah, this stuff works pretty well. Everything sticks to it. If you read up on it, people seem to really like it. It certainly helped my game a lot. It doesn't provide a lot of coverage, or it doesn't really fill holes or anything like that. And it actually looks kind of ugly when you put it on. Like all these repairs we did, they'll look like scars. And that's where the paint comes in. So let's see where I put the paint can. Just a sec. There it is. So for paint, I've been using Sherwin-Williams Pro Classic. This is a Let's see. It's an interior acrylic latex. This is a semi-gloss, and then we had the color mix. My wife really liked the color at her sister's house, so that's the color that we had. It's basically kind of a creamy white, not like a super bright white, but a nice white.
What are you doing, Dad?
I'm shooting a video. I'm shooting a video. Can you hang on for just a sec? Hold on just a minute, okay? We got company, so it could get a little rocky here. So anyway, normally I like to use this paint. I had trouble with this paint at first because one of the things I didn't like about it is that it kind of dries a little bit fast. Like if you're slow at painting, then this stuff will start hardening up before you're done painting. And some of my earlier doors, I had some brush marks in the corners and things like that because this paint tends to start skinning over really fast. I was painting this summer with it, and it was pretty hot here, and it was really a problem. So I put a little bit of Floetrol into it, following the manufacturer's directions, and that helped a little bit. It's cooler this time of year because it's January right now, so the garage has been cooler. I've actually got a little heater out here heating it up, and that's making the paint easier to deal with. And I think that's why the last two doors I did came out so nice, even though I hadn't painted in a while. They really came out nice because it's cooler and it just wasn't setting up as fast. So I don't paint out of the can for this. I've got one of these buckets right here that I bought over at the neighborhood store. I think they sell these at Home Depot also. It's the Versatainer. It's a 5-quart bucket, and let's see here. Try not to tape on the camera. I got this little 1-gallon version of that screen over at Home Depot as well, and it happens to fit inside the Versatainer if you bend the tabs. So that works pretty well. Once in a while I'll drain the Versatainer out because they're not very expensive and get a new one and just filter the remaining paint. So this Pro Classic paint's pretty expensive. It's like, I think if you bought it and it wasn't on sale, it's like $80 a gallon or something like that. Sherwin-Williams always seems to be having a sale, so I normally get it for like $50 a gallon. The thing I like about it is that since I've sped up and gotten better at painting, this paint, if you put it on and lay it off, which is the brush stroke that I was talking about, if you put it on and lay it off and then don't touch it, it levels itself out really nicely and comes out really smooth. So, I've grown to love it after, initially hating it. So yeah, I like to paint out of a bucket. And the general process I use, let me put this over here so you can see. So I'll set this step stool up in between the two doors. Pretend for a moment that I'm primering here. So I'll get the primer down here. Stir it up really good with just a regular paint stirrer from the store. Let's see if we can, here we go. And then I try to hold all 3 brushes at once, or all 3 applicators at once. So I'll wet the roller here in the bucket and sponge it off so it's not dripping with paint, because dripping with paint's a problem. You get spatters and stuff, but it's loaded with paint. And then I'll just get the tips of both brushes wet. And so generally the process, like I said, I paint the outside panel, the small top one, and then the inside, and then I just go down the door to this panel, this panel, this panel, and this panel. And we'll see this once again when I primer later. But let me show you on this panel. Let's see if we can get a close-up of how I would paint that, because this is one of the tricky parts for me. So imagine I've loaded this roller up. What I want to do is just come in and lightly roll it. You don't want to squeeze it out. You just kind of want to roll it. I try to get the middle of the panel first, and then I'll kind of ram it up into the detail here a little bit, flip it around so I can get into the corner, flip it around over here and do this side, once again flipping around to the corner, and then on the side that's facing me here and on the bottom side you can pull it so it's a little easier to get the paint out of it. So I'll pull it like that, pull it like that, pull it like that, and then all the way through. And at that point it's mostly painted. The paint's on there, it's got stipple marks from the roller, and that's where laying off comes in. So on each of these panels, and once again we'll see it later, what I'll do then is I'll come and dab the corner and then pull out from the corners, dab, 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 pull out, and then pull out this way, dab, 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 pull out, toward the center, dab, 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 pull out with a really light brush stroke on all four corners, dab, 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 and pull out. And then these flat parts, I'll just brush those lightly just to get some brush marks on them. Okay, and then I'll switch to the 2.5 inch brush and just lay that off very lightly. Down, 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 down. And then the key after you're done doing that is to leave it alone. Like, you're going to see brush strokes. If you've got a little dribble or something like that, you know, you can chance it and try to fix it, or you can just leave it and either maybe it'll dry in a way that you don't notice, or it'll go away later. As you learn to put the paint on in appropriate amounts, then you will have less of that. I find that I have to load this roller up about halfway for these top panels, and then I can get a good roll or a good load for the bigger panels, because they'll take all the paint because they're so much longer. And what I'll do coming out of the bucket on that is I will dip my roller, get it loaded up, and then hold it like this on top of the big brush. So the big brush accumulates a little bit of paint here, and I can set it down so all the paint, it doesn't dribble on the edges and stuff, and I can just smear whatever paint got onto my big brush here. You want to make sure you don't go too low or you'll scratch it with the ferrule, and then you get a nice roll out here. And so I just I go down and do all the panels. I'm trying not to get paint up on the edges to the extent possible, because that'll start to dry out here. It's a little bit's going to be inevitable, so that's why you have to work fast, just to keep track of that. Once all the panels are painted, I'm going to dip again. I'm going to come out here, and I usually try to bring the roller in sideways, kind of like this, and just to distribute the paint a little bit. And then you're going to roll the center section out like that, just trying to cover all the surfaces. Once again, not squeezing, because you'll get paint running down into the panels if you squeeze it. You just kind of want to roll it out. Dip it again. I'll come and do a little circle here and a circle here to get some of the paint off of it, and then I'll come up and do this part. We're trying not to go outside these lines up here and out here to the extent possible. And once again, you're going to get a little bit outside those lines in the process of getting to it, but the more you roll out there, the more it's going to start to set up on the outside. Like if you get paint out here, you're not painting this part over here for like another 10 minutes, so this paint that you get out here starts to set up. So you want to try to just come up to this line to the extent possible and not get too far past it. So once that's on, I'll tip this off like this, like a really light sweep with the brush. You want to sweep, sweep, and that sort of respects these lines. And then you come across like that and sweep that. And then you move on to the next section. I'm going to move down to, I'll dip the roller again, run this part and this part right here. Switch brushes and tip, tip, and then across here like this. Sometimes if I spill out onto the edges over here, I'll take this brush and just really lightly try to trace that line, so at least if the paint sets up out here, it's going to be, the brush strokes will be pointing in the right direction. Okay, now looking toward the back of the door, finally I'll roll this part on. This takes about one brush load, or one roller load down here. You tip that off the same way. And once again, any paint that gets on these outside rails here, from that painting, either here or further up the door, you want to just come by and give it a light little sweep to at least get the brush strokes going the right direction. Okay, so after that's done, I've got the whole middle of the door painted, and then I find that for me, I need to dip the roller about twice to do each side here. So I'll come down and do this part up to just a little past the door hole here, dip it again, run it here, and if it's the first side of the door, then what I want to do is run down the edge like this to paint the sides. Once you get all the paint on, I actually don't drop my brushes that much while I'm painting. You want to tip that off just down the sides first, and then just a nice little sweep all the way down to smooth everything out. Smooth, smooth, smooth. And then you do the same on the other side. So normally when I'm painting the first side of the door, and I'm painting this side here as well, the last thing I'll do is I'll grab a wet rag when I'm done and run underneath to catch any paint that dribbled down around the edge, because that'll end up being like little drips that dry and stick out from the door underneath if you let it set for 15 or 20 minutes. Do that on both sides, and then you just want to let it sit. Like, it's really tempting to stick your brush in there and do all kinds of stuff after you put the paint on. It's a bad idea. Don't do it. You're going to regret it. So normally at that point, I'll switch the stool around here, flip it this way. I'll head over, do this door, this front side of this door, the same way, and then I'll grab all 3 brushes. I keep another wet rag here just on the bench. I've got this old, here I'll show you. Got this old box lid here that turned into like my painting buddy. I usually just keep another wet rag here. I throw everything in there and just throw the top over it to keep everything from setting up. And then I'm over flipping that door over, doing the same thing on the other side. And then coming back to this door to do the other side. And then once I'm finished with that, I'll usually come back and flip this one over one more time just to make sure I don't have any dribbles. If you put the paint on too heavy, especially like if you get too much in the corners here on the panels, or if you get too much on the edges, it'll make drips. So you got to watch out for that. And you just want to put nice, thin, even coats of paint on. So let's see, what else do I need to cover? I think that's it. So, you know, as promised tonight, I'm going to come out. We're going to crack this primer open, stir it up real quick, get some gloves on, and I'm going to primer these doors. I will do the first side of one of them, and we'll switch, and then I'll come and flip it over and show you how to do the second side. And then that should get you everywhere you need to be with the primer. Tomorrow we'll do the sand the primer out a little bit, tack cloth it again, and then 2 coats of paint. And then by Friday morning they'll be ready to bring back in the house. All right, we will talk again soon. Bye-bye.